Well, again, unfortunately, I'm doing my portion of the interview with Dr. Heineman from my bed at home because I've picked up some terrible back pain, and no doubt from having to carry these political heresies on my shoulders that Dr. Heineman spouts forth occasionally. Stay tuned.
Next on News Talk, AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show with Kevin Doran.
Yes, we apologize to all the boys at McDonald's. We had to change Dr. Heineman's program from Friday to Monday because Dr. Spence Annabelle, a medical doctor, wanted to issue a warning about taking seriously ill people to hospitals outside our area. That could be very dangerous. Dr. Heineman, are you feeling dangerous today?
No, Kevin, I'm feeling very mellow and very pleasant, but you could change that in a moment's notice.
Well,
yes.
I know you wanted Obama to do what he did. You thought it was fair. But was it also legal? There's the question. I'm talking about immigration, of course.
Well, it appears that what President Obama is trying to do is goad the Republicans into actually passing legislation dealing with this, which, of course, would be an appropriate and perhaps constructive outlet to this whole issue. So that I don't really have much problem with the substance of what he did. But you're right, Kevin. I think there may well be some procedural illegalities here.
Well, what, if anything, could be done if it is illegal? This is a president who's been rather careless with the truth and careless with the Constitution. So what could or should the new Congress do about that next month?
Well, I don't know that there's anything Congress can do about this executive action other than pass legislation relevant to it, which I think would be a very good idea. The problem is Bush has been fighting to try to get some sort of immigration policy, and now Obama, off and on, has been trying to get some sort of immigration policy, and it's very difficult to get anything, impossible to get anything out of Congress up until this point. So I think he feels that something has to break loose here, and he might well argue that that's his primary goal. I'm not so sure, but I do know you have 4.5 million people who've been working in the United States for 10, 15 years. They've their children are American citizens because they've been born here. It seems to me crazy not to put these people on the tax rolls and keep track of them.
If Obama could run for a third term, would you vote for him, Bob? I get the feeling you might.
No, I would not, Kevin. That's a really insidious question.
Well, last week you told me how much you like single-payer health insurance, which is what Obamacare is.
I did not say I liked single-payer health insurance.
Geez, Bob, maybe I'm losing it altogether. I could have sworn I heard you say that.
Well, I think maybe some of those painkiller drugs may be having some effect, Kevin. And
not enough, pal. Yeah.
I think what I said was, in terms of health care, that we've got to see that people are provided with their health problems, but then in fact letting the private insurance companies in and competing with each other, I think you could end up with some really healthy maybe is not the term here, but some really useful advances here in the healthcare field.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I know you will. Wasn't that the Republican plan? Didn't they want to do that?
I think you mean in terms of letting the private health companies...
Absolutely, and letting them go across state lines.
Yeah, yes, yes. And I, frankly, Kevin, I'm not certain that they can still go, that they are able to go across state lines yet. And I assume that's because the healthcare companies, the insurance companies, have had enough clout to stop that. But what I do think is interesting, in the Wall Street Journal, I believe, or the New York Times here within the last week, there was an article pointing out that a lot of the healthcare, I think it was the Sunday New York Times actually, a lot of the healthcare insurance companies now are pretty satisfied with the Affordable Health Care Act because they've figured out what it means and they've figured out how to make money under it. So I think you're going to have a lot of these insurance companies fighting any kind of change, not any kind of change, but any major change. There's plenty of room for changes. There's no question about that.
What if the Republican plan for tort reform, that is, rein in all the frivolous lawsuits, telling the insurance companies, you have to compete across state lines. Don't let them run this thing. Let the people run this thing, and get the government itself out of it. Listen, they've screwed up everything else they've touched, except World War II. So why should we think they could handle health care? They can't.
Well, are you saying, why do we think that the government or the Democrats? Whom are you picking on at this point, Kevin?
It was a Democrat-controlled Congress.
Yeah. Well, in terms of healthcare change, I think basically the idea of suing the government, which John Boehner and apparently the House Republicans are undertaking, I think that's really a strange idea, Kevin. I think that's strange.
Strange, you say? All right. What about this line that Obama used repeatedly, and his minions did the same, namely that 8 other presidents, including Republicans, had done the very same thing? Is that a fiction of his imagination? Or?
Well, he is a student of constitutional law and taught constitutional law at the University.
Yeah, right. We know that. Right, yes.
Well, Kevin, you're interrupting me here.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think he may be pushing the envelope there a little bit. I think in terms of national emergencies, for example, the World War, presidents have acted pretty widely in terms of their authority. But at this point, I'm not certain, I'm not certain he's on very strong grounds here, although I did hear one of his defenders point out that he's really not changing the immigration law at all here. All he's doing is saying that you can't deport these people at this point. In other words...
they weren't deporting them anyway. I don't know what the big deal's about.
Well, the big deal is that when my brother-in-law's factory in California in the L.A. area, one of the fellow workers came in one day and yelled immigration.
Yeah.
And the place emptied out, literally emptied out, except for my brother-in-law and this guy. And this guy was not a real favor to these guys after that. So the point is you have a lot of people working hard with this hanging over their head all the time. And why shouldn't they be paying Social Security and income tax and like everybody else? So I like you say, Kevin, I think it's a move in the right direction, but the actual constitutionality of it is another issue I think that probably should be either looked at or taken care of.
Well, you teach the Constitution. What do you think?
I'd have to look at that a little closer. I think he's stretching it, yes, I do think he's stretching it quite a ways.
All right, what happens over the next 2 years? Republicans have used this term over and over again. Congressmen, senators, strategists, they've said over and over again, he's poisoned the well with Republicans. What does that mean?
I'll be darned if I know, Kevin.
Well, what do you think the Republicans are going to do now for the next 2 years of this presidency?
Well, I mean, what do you mean, what are the Republicans going to do?
Will there be any kind of cooperation? Not that that's important. See, I think people don't realize that a government which is divided is exactly what the founders wanted. They didn't want anyone rushing in and doing stupid things. And I don't know why people always blame Congress. Why not blame him? You follow me? or Harry Reid. Blame Harry Reid.
Well, you really have a thing about Harry Reid, Kevin. That's unfortunate. I think the other topic we should look at is that President Obama has moved more troops into Afghanistan. You probably followed that?
I did.
And I assume he's informed Congress that he's done that.
Well, if he hasn't, they learned vicariously through the press, yeah.
Yeah, they'll have to start watching Fox News like the rest of us, I guess.
Well, listen, if you didn't watch Fox News, you wouldn't know about Jonathan Gruber and all the terrible things he said. So thank God for Fox.
Well, that's a nice sentiment. I'm not certain everyone shares that sentiment, but it does indicate to me that the things in the Middle East, I think what's going to happen here is we're increasingly going to just keep creeping back in to places like Iraq and Afghanistan and probably even Syria till we'll have a good chunk of troops over there again. What do you think, Kevin?
Well, that's what all the analysts say we've got to do, because the Iraqi army is not going to beat ISIL. That's for sure. And listen, while you're talking about that, let's take a brief break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Our guest today on Monday, which is unusual, he's usually our regular Friday guest, Dr. Robert Heineman. I'm back in bed with back problems. As I mentioned earlier, some people give me a real pain in the back, and never mind, I won't pursue that. Listen, Bob.
I'm here listening, Kevin, and we all are listening.
All right. There was a report on the Drudge Report yesterday from the Jerusalem Post, which said that Bibi Netanyahu is also considering considering a preemptive attack on Iran. You buy into that? You think he will?
I think that would be idiotic, and I don't think he's an idiot.
Right. In other words, that's just to try to get us to stay off this treaty business with Iran, right?
Yeah, that's possible. But that treaty business really doesn't seem to be going anywhere, although I have seen where we've pretty much settled a lot of the points of dispute, but don't seem to be able to get right down to the point where Iran is willing to stop nuclear development in the weapons area. So I don't know how close we are.
Having a nuclear weapon?
I'm sorry?
Are you personally upset at the prospect that Iran would have a nuclear weapon?
Absolutely. I'm upset at the prospect that anybody else in the Middle East would have nuclear weapons. It's not clear to me, what are they going to do with these nuclear weapons? I can't really follow that. I mean, to use these nuclear weapons against somebody else would be such a horrendous thing that I don't know. Maybe all you'd end up with is something like world public opinion. I think tied into that is the increasing threat from Putin to try to push us around with basically the argument that somehow the Russians' nuclear arsenal is a big threat, a club he can use. And I don't think Putin's crazy either, so I'm not quite certain where all this is going. Perhaps you can help us out, Kevin.
Well, in Jerusalem, as you undoubtedly know, a couple of Palestinians broke into a temple, a synagogue, and killed 5 people, 4 or 5. So 4 of whom were American citizens, rabbis who had joint citizenship. Then Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, in what I personally consider a dumb move, once again ordered the destruction of the homes of anyone related to those 2 guys, which of course would help in the settlement program, but it sure doesn't make friends and influence people. Can't one of those 2 sides just say, hold it, we're not going to retaliate this time? whether it's the Palestinians who say it or the Israelis.
Well, I think here, Kevin, in terms of that attack, I don't think you can believe, I think you cannot blame either Hamas or Abbas, the Palestinian Authority leader. I mean, you've got these renegades, and in this kind of situation, the possibility of these guys running loose on their own, I mean, is very high. And my theory has been, and since the Israelis pounded Hamas in the Gaza Strip here some months ago, that basically they've beaten those guys into submission. But that doesn't mean that you can't have these sporadic kinds of attacks, sort of terrorist attacks, really. And there's no way really to control these guys in that sense. So to sort of blame everybody else for that, I think is, you're right, is misleading and unwise.
Provoke more violence, right?
Exactly, exactly.
You may remember back in the 50s, Eisenhower said to Ben-Gurion, I understand why you want to retaliate, but do you have to retaliate so hard? Because that just exacerbates it. Now, Bob, one final question in American politics.
I'm waiting.
As you know, having read Blood Feud, I was convinced the Democrats would never be so foolish as to nominate Hillary. But, you know, they've got nobody else. They're going to have to go with Hillary. And I am afraid that your team's going to put up Jeb Bush. And I remember the last time a Clinton ran against a Bush. Why can't they find somebody else other than a Clinton and a Bush? Aren't we kind of tired of those names?
Well, I think the Republicans have a really very deep bench. And the idea it's going to be a Bush-Clinton race, it could be. But this guy Kasich, I think, in Ohio looks very good.
Very good.
And
Scott Walker.
So you could have a Bush-Kasich ticket. And there are a number of other people that look very strong. So in terms of the Republican side, I'm not saying Bush is automatic by any means, but if you look at Bush and Clinton, the advantage they have is that they have a network, an organization, national organization throughout the country that they can draw on, which makes them very tough in a nomination battle. On the other hand, you see Governor Jerry Brown in California is suggesting that maybe he'll be a candidate for the presidency. And I think the reason Jerry Brown is doing that is to hold the Democrats in line in California, a favorite son candidate, which would give him a heck of a lot of clout in terms of who the next Democratic candidate might be, and it might well not be Hillary Clinton. So I wouldn't...
Bob, let me stop you. Who is it going to be? You talk about having a good bench. A deep bench, the Republicans do. The Democrats don't.
It's a little thin there on the Democrat side. You've got Governor Cuomo.
Yeah, right.
You have Elizabeth Warren. You have Joe Biden, who has a lot of White House experience by now.
Like I said...
Yeah, it looks pretty thin, Kevin. But on the other hand, look at it this way. Hillary Clinton is 67 years old. She'll be 69 when if she runs for election. She'll be older than Ronald Reagan was when he ran.
Well,
and she's already had, I think, some basic neurological problems. So she's carrying a lot of baggage, including her husband. So I think that's a heck of a stretch. That's what I have to say, Kevin.
You think Hillary isn't automatic then, huh?
Do I think Hillary's automatic? Absolutely not.
Well, if he has his way, John Jameson in Arkport will sway that convention to go some other way. Bob, our time is gone.
Good luck, John Jameson.
I'm having back spasms, and you ever had back spasms, Bob?
I have, and they're very painful. I sympathize
they really
with
are,
you.
Yeah. Okay, pal. We'll talk to you later. Now, stay tuned for more news and information on AM 1480 WLEA.